next guest has been getting a whole lot of attention lately as a possible Democratic candidate for president. If elected, he would be the youngest president in history. Please welcome Mayor Pete Buttigieg. Wow. Hello, Pete. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks.
Thanks for being here. And you're surging in the polls. Like all of a sudden, I mean, you were doing well, but I think now it has you like number 3 in some cases behind Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden, which is incredible. I mean, it's happening fast, right?
Yeah, I mean, a month ago, we were just trying to get people to be able to say my name. Thanks for clearing that up, by the way.
Buttigieg. Yes.
See?
I'm sure you had problems your entire childhood.
Yeah, I can't even tell you some of the different ways my name got said over the years. But the good news for me is elections are multiple choice, so you don't have to spell it or know how to say it. You just have to be able to pick it up out of a lineup. Yeah,
and hopefully people will. But you haven't even announced yet. I mean, would you like to announce here? You should announce here.
So an announcement is something you only get to do once, and I want to make sure that we do it right and that we do it.
Go ahead. Do it right.
So I can think of no better place than here, except one, which is my hometown. We got a big event planned on Sunday, and can't wait to have as many friends and supporters as we can come, and then we're looking to make some news.
So when you do announce, if you do, when you do, you would be, I think, what I think is the 18th possible Democratic. I mean, that's a lot, right?
You could say that.
Yeah, I mean, what do you think of having that many choices?
I think it reflects that we're in this moment. It's not just another election. It's a real kind of hinge between different eras in American history. The changes that we're going through right now, they're going to affect the way life goes in this country for the next probably 40 years. And I think there are a lot of different ideas about what we should do about it. So I don't think it's a bad thing. There's certainly a lot of competition. It'll be hard to keep track of, but it'll start to sort itself out. And the more voices, the more ideas, the more diversity there is in this field, the better off I think we're going to be.
Yeah, well, that's a great answer. And you, I mean, you certainly are qualified in many, many different areas. You are Harvard, right? Went to Harvard, Rhodes Scholar. You went to Afghanistan. You are also a concert pianist, which is good to have, like in the White House, somebody to, tickle the ivories. And you speak 7 languages. What are they?
So I'm not claiming to be fluent in most of them, but my French is pretty good. My Spanish is good enough. I can give an interview. It's kind of halting, but I can do it. I can at least read through an article in Norwegian, Arabic, Italian, a couple others.
Me too. So I think that what's amazing about you too is that you are very calm. Like you're you're not trying to, say this is who I am, and you're just like people are attracted to you with this kind of silent presence. And the president that we have now, a lot of people are angry, and there's a lot of, especially candidates, Democratic candidates, are going after him and reacting to what he's doing, things he's doing. And you're ignoring that.
Yeah, I think the challenge for our party is, of course, when he lies, we got to say something about it. And if he does something wrong, we got to confront it. But it can't be all about him. Even the way that we try to turn the page, it's really about making sure we're talking about you, not just you, Ellen, but
I thought you meant me.
You, the American voter, right? And I think he has this ability to make it all about him. So even when he's being criticized, all the energy kind of goes in that direction. But so much of the frustration that led us to where our politics are now has to do with the fact that a lot of things in our economy and our democracy just aren't working for people. We got to be speaking to that. And I think if we have a good message, if we have the right kind of message, then it won't revolve around either the candidate we're backing or the candidate we're opposing. It'll revolve around life. It'll revolve around home, what it's like to be an American, and how policies can make that either easier or harder. And a good message will be one that makes as much sense in 2030 or 2040 or 2054, which is when I'll get to the age of the current president, it's always fun hearing that sink in. But that it'll make as much sense then as it does today.
Yeah. So not only, I mean, you're super smart, obviously, at 37 years old, and you would be the youngest president, but you also are openly gay, which, has not, the support that you have as mayor and that you've had, and you've been married for 1 year, and your husband would be the first gentleman, which would be the first gentleman, How's he feel about that? Is he excited about that? Or, I mean...
Yeah, he's right here. And you know, he makes me a better candidate because he makes me a better person. That's how a good marriage works.
Yeah.
He didn't exactly sign up for this. I was already mayor when we started dating. But on our first date, he asked, you know, what does the future look like? And I gave him an answer which was honest at the time, right, love?
What was it?
Well, it was that we were in the middle of a re-election. It was 2015. I thought I was probably going to win. If that went well, then in 2019-20, if things really were going well in South Bend, then I might be considered as somebody who might run for governor. But it was really hard to tell the future. So, you know, we both got a lot more than we bargained for, just because of the way things have developed for me, for the country, for the party over the last couple of years. But I couldn't do this without his support, and I'm lucky to have him in my corner.
And all right. Well, I think it's amazing. I think you're amazing, and I just really, it's incredible, like I said, the support that I'm seeing around you. And we're going to take a break, and we're going to get your reaction to something that Mike Pence said recently, which is, you know, it's kind of, well, we'll see. We'll be back. We're back with Mayor Pete Buttigieg. Buttigieg?
Got it. Rolls off the tongue, right?
Yeah, it does. Once you say it, Buttigieg. But is there an emphasis on boot or edge?
I think it goes more in the boot.
Boot.
By the way, I can't help but notice you can't spell Buttigieg without Tig. So I'm just thinking, you know, do you think I get an invite onto that show? Or...
On Tig's show? Yeah. How dare you? How dare you? It's already been shut down. Only lasts for like 3 minutes. What if you made your announcement on her show? That would have been hilarious. All right, so I want to get your reaction because Mike Pence said that you have been critical of his faith and critical of him, and you should know better, and that you're just criticizing him to get elected. So what would you say to that?
Yeah, I'm not critical of his faith. I'm critical of bad policies. I don't have a problem with religion. I'm religious too. I have a problem with religion being used as a justification to harm people. And especially in the LGBTQ community, so many people, even today, feel like they don't belong. You can get fired in so many parts of this country just for who you are. And that's got to change. And if the VP, I'm not interested in feuding with the vice president, but if he wanted to clear this up, he could come out today and say he's changed his mind, that it shouldn't be legal to discriminate against anybody in this country for who they are. That's all.
Yeah. Yep. And unfortunately, a lot of people, it's really a shame too, because there is, you know, nothing wrong with religion, and it's really good for a lot of people, and it works for a lot of people. But religion is used sometimes to justify. They say, well, it says here in the Bible this. So, and I know you're a religious person. So, what do you say to that? To being religious?
I mean, let me begin by saying I think it's important for anybody who steps into a political process to speak for people of any faith and people of no faith. So when I talk about my faith, it's not because I believe it should be imposed on others, but it does guide me. And when I'm in church, the scripture I hear is about taking care of the least among us. It's about lifting up those who are most vulnerable and visiting the prisoner and taking care of the sick and welcoming the stranger. That's what I get when I hear scripture. It's a message that is fundamentally about love and humility, humbling yourself before God and putting other people before you. And again, that doesn't have to be anybody else's understanding of religion, but it's where Christianity takes me. And that does have implications for how I behave in the political space.
That's great. So there are some people who are disappointed that a woman wasn't elected the last election, and now they're hoping a woman would be elected this time around. So what do you say to people who are like, but I want a woman to be president? What is your convince them.
Yeah, I get it. And you know, I also am disappointed that a woman was not elected president in 2016. And I think in the end, you got to vote for the person you think best speaks to your values and is best able to lead the country. And you may decide that's me, and you may decide that's somebody else. What I will say is I think it's more important than ever in administrations, in politics, and in every other field to have gender diversity and gender balance. And the next president is going to have to make sure that that administration at the most senior levels has gender balance, especially if the next president turns out to be male.
So that means that you would possibly put a woman as your VP?
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it'd be presumptuous now for me to rule anybody in and out since I haven't got the nomination. But what I would say is gender balance and diversity in general is going to be extremely important, and that starts with the ticket.
Yeah, I agree. All right, thank you so much. We'll be right back. Our first guest is a former First Lady, a U.S. Senator, and Secretary of State. Now she's the subject of a new documentary series called Hillary. Please welcome Hillary Clinton. Woo. Hi, Hillary. Hi.
Hi, Ellen.
The last time you were here, you were sitting here saying that when you're elected, you were going to let us do our show in the White House.
That's right. I did say that.
Yeah.
We
didn't get to do it.
We didn't get to do it.
No, we did not.
But there is a different kind of show going on.
There is. There is a show going on. I'm sure you're watching.
But I'll talk to whoever's next and see if we can't get that done.
All right.
That's a deal?
Yeah. I want to, exactly. Because I would like to do the show in the White House.
Yeah.
Let's
I'd love you to.
I would love to do it. This is a
dancing, too. Keep the dancing,
right? More dancing. More dancing in the world. That's what we need. Happiness and dancing. This is a big week. You're here. The president was Trump was just acquitted by the Senate of his impeachment. Mm-hmm. Does that surprise you? Did you expect that?
Well, I wasn't surprised because it's hard to get 67 votes to convict and remove somebody. But I was still disappointed that not more of the Republicans were willing to take the stand that Mitt Romney took.
Mitt Romney
made an absolutely extraordinary speech on the floor of the Senate, talking about why he felt the weight of history on his shoulders and that he was going to vote to convict on one of the articles of impeachment. Look, the evidence was really clear. There was no doubt by the time it was all presented that actually the president had done what he was accused of. In fact, he'd admitted that he had done what he was accused of. He just didn't think that anybody would hold him accountable. So we're now moving on, but I hope that voters and Americans of all political stripes actually pay attention and say to themselves, hey, he has to be held accountable. And now the way to do that is in the election.
Yep. And like you said, this is just, people, doing what's right and what's, Mitt Romney is a Republican. The fact that he is standing up and saying, no, this is not right, is a very important thing.
Well, it was really important, and it was the first time in our history that there has ever been a bipartisan vote to convict. First time ever. So his taking that stand, combined with all of the other remarks that different Republican senators had to say, there's no doubt what the president did was wrong. It was to promote his own personal interests, not the interests of our country. It did put our national security at risk. And everything that was said was proven. So now it's voters who are going to have to say, okay, I have to take responsibility for this and follow Mitt Romney's lead.
Yeah, I hope this is going to be the biggest voter turnout ever. I mean, this is the most important.
Right.
We really, and now that you have a lot of these, the voters on the Democrat side they aren't ready to make a decision yet.
Right.
I mean, what do you say to these people who are still undecided?
Look, the primary process is very long, it's very rigorous, it's difficult. Candidates will have ups and downs. I know that very well myself. And I say two things. I say, vote for the person that you believe can actually win in November, and the person who you think can govern our country, because somebody has to get in there and try to bring our country together and try to put us on the right track into the future and restore our democracy and our standing in the world. So it's those two factors. Who do you think can win? Because if you don't win, you can't govern. And who can best govern at a very difficult time in American history?
Because it seems to me more than ever, we need somebody who's going to go in and be able to kind of steer this ship in the right direction instead of going to an extreme.
Yes.
Do you have somebody you're leaning towards right now, or will you even say?
No, I am saying the same thing to everybody. Please look at the candidates, and clearly you'll like somebody better than others, and then analyze that person's positions and their message, and can that person win? Because remember, it's not the popular vote, it's the Electoral College, because I got 3 million more votes, but lost by 70,000 or so in the Electoral College. And, you know, we have so much to be proud of in our country. We have so many wonderful people and great things that are going on. But we need to get back into what I call the future business. We need to be investing in our future. That means dealing with climate change. That means dealing with health care. It means making the economy work for everybody. And these things are not easy to do. So you need somebody who knows how to govern. And I just want everybody to pay attention because, as you say, we really should have the biggest turnout ever in this next election.
And not just listen to what people are saying they can do, because anyone can say anything. Like in your documentary, you refused to say things that you knew you couldn't get done.
Yeah.
And you could have said a lot of things. I mean, the documentary is so good. I can't wait for people to see it. It's really, really good and revealing. We have to take a break, but I'm just so glad to see you again, and I love this documentary, and people will see. So you have, what a life you've had. What a life you've had. We'll be back. We're back with Hillary Clinton. So this documentary, which is on Hulu, which will be on Hulu, I don't know when it comes out.
March 6th.
March 6th. It's so good, and it's a 4-part docuseries. You really didn't plan on doing this, but you had all this footage from campaigning and from your life, and they put a documentary together.
Well, originally, I thought it was going to be a kind of behind-the-scenes look at the campaign, because we had about 1,700 hours of footage that, you know, was backstage, on the plane, on the bus. I mean, everything that people were interested in, we had all this footage. And a couple of folks said, how about a campaign documentary? I said, fine, and Hulu ended up buying it and hired a director who I met before the decision was made. I thought she was terrific. And so she came back to me. She looked at all the 1,700 hours. Then she came back to me. She goes, you know, there's a bigger story here. And yes, it's a story about your life, but it's also a story about women's lives over the last 50 to 60 years. It's about the women's movement. It's about the American political system. And we'd like to do more than just a behind-the-scenes look. I said, OK, sounds good. I still didn't really have any idea what this would entail. So I ended up doing 35 hours of interviews. And I mean, there are things in it that I didn't remember, Ellen. I mean, there's a scene that the director and her staff, her team found where I was working on affordable health care, and I was being burned in effigy, you know, because I wanted to get quality, affordable health care for everybody, and people are burning me in effigy. And I thought, wow, what does that really tell you about how hard it is to get things done that actually help people? So there's a lot of really interesting insights, and again, not just about me and my life, but about a lot of our lives.
Yeah, it's eye-opening and informative, and we'll take a break. More with Hillary after this. We're back with Hillary Clinton. So this documentary, there was nothing off topic. You went there with Monica Lewinsky. President Clinton talked about Monica Lewinsky. And because you said you can ask anything.
Right. Was
that really difficult for you? I mean, it must have been really tough to relive that.
Yeah, it was. Once I agreed to cooperate, the director said, well, we're going to talk about everything. And I said, okay. And yet, when it actually came time, yeah, it's hard. You know, as I said when I was talking about the book Chelsea and I wrote, The Book of Gutsy Women, that, you know, staying in my marriage was the gutsiest personal decision I ever made. And so for me, revisiting that, talking about it, for my husband also to agree to be in the film and then also to be asked, made it a bit difficult. There's no doubt about it. But you couldn't actually do a film about my life and not cover something that everybody, knew about, because you could read about it, and everybody had an opinion about. And it's fascinating because as you go through the film, some of the women who have been my friends and who have supported me personally and every other way, they talked about it. They talked about how so many women would be really upset because I chose to stay with my husband. And they would go and talk to these women. And a lot of the women would say, well, I can't support her. I don't like her because she stayed with her husband. And they would say, oh, okay, well, why is that? And people would talk. But then pretty soon they would say, well, that happened to my sister, that happened to my friend, that happened. And I always said, everybody needs to make the best decision for you and your family. And toward the end of the film, one of the people who's both a friend and also worked in my campaigns said, it just was such a strange conversation because some of the very same people who would say, I can never support her, would say literally in the next breath, but I love her husband. I love Bill Clinton. I said, well, I do too. But it was, it was a really emotionally draining experience to go through it again. But I have to say, once I saw the whole 4 hours of the documentary, I hope that our talking about this, my willingness to address all of this, really does help other people. I mean, there are lessons from my life, from our times, because people, need to, be thoughtful about the decisions they make in their own lives. And we should be kinder and more supportive to everybody who makes the best decisions that they think they can make.
Absolutely. It's a fascinating documentary. It's fascinating. We'll be right back. More with Hillary after this. I love that.
Yeah, but that's a very common concern that people still have, that somehow a woman president will act on her emotions. And by the time somebody runs for president, you've actually been through a lot of life. Usually you've been elected to something, sometimes not, but often yes. And it really strikes me as quite odd because, most of the criticism, and as I alluded to in the clip there, is because I didn't show my emotions enough. I wasn't emotional enough. I should have been, emoting more. But I thought, it's such a highly responsible, awesome job being president that I needed to demonstrate that, hey, I can handle this, I can do it, I'm not gonna get, knocked around. And now, we've got one of the most emotionally acting out people ever in the history of our country in the White House. And I don't hear anybody saying he's just too emotional,
Yeah.
So we still have a ways to go until women are going to be judged by the same standards instead of the old double standard.
Yeah,
right?
It really is crazy. We can really see something for what it is, but we're so used to being women and being taught to stay quiet or smile more or whatever and not yell and just it's a really great documentary. You're getting some heat for some stuff you said about Bernie Sanders. It must feel good that you can say whatever you want now, but you want to talk about that moment?
Well, it's from the film, which was probably filmed, I don't know, a year and a half or so ago. So it wasn't like in the midst of the election. But yeah, I feel like I have a pretty clear perspective about what it's going to take to win. And as I said earlier, that's what I think the key calculation for any voter has to be. But people can have their own opinions about anybody in public life. That's a free country. You get to do that. But I think, as I say in the film, you've got to be responsible for what you say and what you say you're going to do. We need to rebuild trust in our fellow Americans and in our institutions. And if you promise the moon and you can't deliver the moon, then that's going to be one more indicator of how, we just can't trust each other. So it's not good theater, it's not maybe good politics anymore, but I think you should tell people what you mean what you say, and have some sense of responsibility for how you would get anything done that you talk about. So like healthcare. Let's take healthcare, for example. Look, I want quality, affordable healthcare for everybody. And I've been fighting for it for more than 25 years. I've been burned in effigy over it, all of that. I want to get there, but let's remember what's at stake. We have a current president who's trying to take away fundamental healthcare rights. Like, if you have a pre-existing condition, they are in court right now, the Trump administration, trying to take that right away that you got under the Affordable Care Act. So we can have a big argument about ideally what kind of health care we should want for everybody, because I'm on the front lines on that battle. But let's remember, if we don't win, people will lose what they have right now. So I just want everybody to understand how high the stakes are and to hold every candidate and every public office holder accountable for what they do or they don't do.
Last question. If someone asked you to be vice president, would you do it?
Well, that's not going to happen. No, probably no.
You don't know that's not going to happen.
I think I do. Yeah.
Really?
I think I do. Yeah, I think I do.
All right. But what if they did?
Oh, well. Look, it's like when Barack Obama asked me to be Secretary of State. I was shocked. I had no idea he was going to ask me, and I turned him down twice. He said, I need, look, the economy's in free fall. It's a catastrophe. I've got to focus on that. We've got problems around the world. You go focus on that. And I said, no, I'm happy where I am. You get somebody else. I'm sure there's good people around. And at the second time I said, no, Mr. President-elect, I'm not going to do it. He said, I'm not calling you again until you say yes. And so I'll tell you, I started thinking about it, and I thought if I'd won and I'd wanted to ask him to do something, I would have wanted him to do that for me. So I never say never, because I do believe in serving my country, but it's not going to happen.
You will. Thank you for putting me in your book of Gutsy Women. This is Hillary's book with Chelsea. They wrote it called The Book of Gutsy Women, and it's a fantastic book. And you have been on the forefront fighting for women's rights since you were a young girl, since you were in college. I thank you for everything that you do, everything that you have done for women. As you say, human rights are women's rights are human rights. Thank you for that.
I'm not stopping yet.
Hillary premieres March 6th on Hulu. We'll be right back. Our first guest is the former mayor of South Bend, Indiana, who is currently running to be the next president of the United States. Please welcome Mayor Pete Buttigieg. Hello there, Pete. How are you?
Great.
So you were here right before you announced.
That's right.
How long has it been now?
It's almost a year.
A year.
Yeah.
Life has changed, huh?
Just a little.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
Has anything surprised you?
Yeah, I mean, just the pace of it. I mean, a year ago, I was mayor, but it's just a different life. I was driving my Chevy to work. I went on Christmas. We didn't have any staff, obviously, Christmas Day, and went to start up the car to take it around the block. It didn't even start because it's been that long since I've driven it. And it's just, most of my meals now are in vehicles. It's just a different life.
Yeah, and you're shaking a lot of hands. I'd think, are you worried about the coronavirus at all? I mean, that's a lot of hands you're shaking.
Policy-wise, I'm very worried about the coronavirus. Personally speaking, yeah, you definitely, any flu or cold that's going around, we're kind of the tip of the spear. And then, of course, you think about it, the candidates all shake everybody's hands. And then on debate nights like we just had, we shake each other's hands. So I figure by now we must have super immunity to anything we haven't come down with. We're meeting everybody.
So the debate the other night, Wednesday night, it got pretty heated. Everybody was talking about how did you feel about it?
Yeah, I think, the heat of competition obviously draws out our differences. But it's also important to remember that at the end of the day, I think Democrats share the same broad values. And there's going to be one nominee. I hope it's me. I'm working to make sure it's me. But whoever it is, we have got to rally around that nominee if we want to defeat this president. And I'm committed to doing that. And I think we all are the moment that we have a nominee.
I mean, you're all pretty much, yes, saying that you want to defeat Trump, and you're hoping that. But right now there's so much fighting among everybody. I mean, you went after Bernie pretty hard, and yet they're saying that Bernie is most likely looking like he would go the furthest. And do you worry about that? How do you then compete with that.
Yeah, I am worried about that. I mean, the pundits are predicting a world where pretty soon the only two left standing are Mike Bloomberg, because he has so many personal resources and money to do ads, and Bernie. And, you know, I respect both of them, but I'm really worried about our ability to defeat Donald Trump if those are our choices. You know, if we have to choose between somebody who wants to burn things down in a way that I think a lot of Americans just don't identify with, and somebody else who thinks you can just buy this with personal fortune as a billionaire, I don't think either of those choices is going to make it possible for us to bring Americans together and defeat this president. That's why I'm offering a different approach. And I think what's going to work is inviting as many Americans as we can into this majority that we're not going to agree on everything. That's okay. But I think most of us can agree that we can do a lot better than the president we've got right now, and that we have to change things in this country before it's too late.
Do you feel like I've talked to a lot of people who feel like they've just lost hope? Like, you know, I mean, how do you give people the incentive to vote and to know that there is something that we can do? You say we have to do it together, but how do you give people that hope?
Well, I think hope is what it's all about. There's a reason why they call candidates hopefuls. You ever notice this on the news? A 2020 hopeful, Pete Buttigieg, appeared on the show today, right? There's that terminology, and I think that's very fitting, because running for office is an act of hope. And by running for office, I'm asking everybody else to be motivated by the hope that our lives will go better depending on who's in charge, depending on who has their hands on the pulleys and levers of government. And voting is an act of hope, too. So I'm asking everybody who feels motivated enough to do anything at all, rather than just accept the way that things are going, to step up and do something about it, because it's up to us. You know, I think for a lot of folks watching for example, watching that impeachment trial play out was just exhausting and frustrating. But we're the jury now. The verdict is up to us because it's an election year. This is our chance to change it.
All right. We'll take a break. More with Pete Buttigieg after this. We're back with Pete Buttigieg. I was just saying, I don't know how you have the energy, because you've been home like once or twice, and I mean, you're constantly going, and you have to be an extrovert to be able to do this, because you said you get energy from people.
Yeah, well, I actually think of myself as an introvert, but I draw a kind of propulsion from the people I meet, because when you're running for president and somebody comes up to you, they shake hands with you on a rope line after you give a speech or whatever it is, they're telling you about the most important thing in their lives. And you take in those stories all day. And it energizes you, because it reminds you all the time what's at stake and why it really matters. This is not, sometimes they talk about politics like it's just another show, like it's a game. And it's our lives. And every time you get reminded of that, it creates this kind of fuel to keep going.
Yeah, I feel like you are, you're a perfect person to be in politics, because, first of all, you're super smart. But you're so even-keeled. Like, you really, nothing rattles you. You just have such, and I guess that comes from, actually, you were in, you know, you served in Afghanistan, and I'm sure you have to have a pretty even.
Yeah, I think it does give you a certain kind of perspective.
Yeah.
You know, there's incoming in the form of a mean tweet, and then there's like incoming, right? And
right.
So you just learn, I think, to keep things in balance a little bit. I'm a very passionate person, but discipline is a really important part of how I serve and how I work.
Yeah. So you have been, I want to give you a chance to address this, because you're having a hard time polling with minorities and the African American community, and I want you to speak to that.
Yeah. Well, I think it's got to begin with humility. I will never have the experience of, for example, walking through a mall or down the street and feeling eyes on me, judging me, and maybe thinking that I am dangerous just because of the color of my skin, the way black men experience. I will never have the experience of going into an emergency room and not being believed describing that I'm in pain the way so many black women experience. So I think it starts with acknowledging that. And if I can't know from experience what that's like, then how can I make myself useful to those who have? I think the next best thing I can do is to show up, to listen, to learn, and to elevate those voices. And so what we're trying to do is make sure that those voices are elevated in my campaign as a way to demonstrate what it'll be like in my presidency too, precisely because I'm never going to be able to say that I get it, at least not from the perspective of personal experience. When I think about something like the Douglas Plan that we put forward. The Frederick Douglass Plan is an idea that our campaign has put forward, a series of proposals to deal with systematic racism in this country. But it's not mine. I didn't sit there and think it up. The reason I think it's strong is because we asked black voices to build that plan. And the way I can make myself useful is to try to drive that plan through as president and continue to elevate those voices throughout. So that's the conversation I'm seeking to have with voters of color who have every reason to be skeptical of politicians, especially new figures who come along, given the number of broken promises and the ways that vote has been taken for granted again and again and again. And the only way to earn it is to go out there and work for it.
This was Rush Limbaugh's comment not too long ago. He said, "How is this going to look? 37-year-old gay guy kissing his husband on stage next to Mr. Man, Donald Trump." How do you want to respond to that?
Look, I guess he just has a different idea of what makes a man than I do. Look, I'm not going to take lectures on family values from the likes of Rush Limbaugh or anybody who supports Donald Trump, frankly. You know, when I was packing my bags for Afghanistan, Donald Trump was working on season 7 of Celebrity Apprentice. And I'm just done with that kind of... And since when is strength about the chest pounding of the loudmouth guy at the end of the bar? The strongest people I know are not the loudest people. They're the ones who have the deepest sense of who they are and what they value and what they care about. And one of those people, by the way, one of the strongest people I know is my husband, Brad Pitt.
I knew Chasten would like that. So
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Sorry, I forgot my Oscar.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna put you in the hot seat. I'm gonna ask you a lot of questions, and you have to answer really, really fast.
Okay.
Which is hard for politicians to do.
Sure.
So, but I'm gonna do that. We'll be back. We are back with Mayor Pete Buttigieg, and this is a segment we're going to call, and we're going to do it with all the candidates. I'm having all the other candidates on, and we're going to all play this game with all of them. It's called Candidly Candid Candidates. Wow, this is uplifting music. All right.
Presidential.
If you had to pick another Democratic candidate to be stuck on a deserted island with, who would it be and why?
I think I'm going to go with Bernie.
Bernie?
Yeah.
Why?
Because we'd never run out of conversation.
True. All right. What's the strangest thing you've had to do or try on the campaign trail?
Have you ever heard of a bacon ball BLT?
Nope.
That's a thing at the Iowa State Fair. It was about the 4th out of about 9 things that I experienced that I will never forget at the Iowa State Fair.
Can you explain to us what's going on in this video?
Oh, good. Right.
What are you trying to do there?
So I was with Congresswoman Annie Custer, who's a supporter of ours in New Hampshire, affectionately known as Annie Raised the Roof Custer. It's been pointed out to me by the internet that this is not the same thing as this, which is why, as a general rule, I do not attempt to dance.
Okay. Judge Judy will be on my show in a couple of weeks. She has come out in support of Michael Bloomberg. Is there anything you want to say to her?
Yes. I would like to file an appeal, and I would like to enter evidence the content of the Las Vegas debate.
Okay. Woo. I learned a lot. What's something from home you definitely want in the White House?
Our dogs, Truman and Buddy.
All right.
Oh, there they are, yeah.
All right. I'm asking all the candidates this, but Obama gave me the Presidential Medal of Freedom. What will you give me?
A big hug.
Aw, I'll take it. On a scale of 1 to 10, rate Colin Jost's impression of you on SNL.
I'm gonna give it a 6.5.
Really?
You know, I actually went to college with Colin. So if you could have told us that, we were very close, but I knew him. If you could have told us, like, we were in the same dorm. So I can just imagine some scenario where, we're probably standing in line next to each other in the cafeteria, and if you could have told us that he'd be playing me on SNL.
And you'd be running for
20 years
president.
later.
Wow, that's amazing. What's the most rebellious thing you did as a teenager? I can't imagine anything, but go try to come up with something. I can't even imagine you. I can't imagine you as a teenager. You look like you've always, I can't imagine you as a baby. You just seem like you're an old soul, like you've always been this age.
I don't know. I guess playing electric guitar isn't rebellious, except I was supposed to be studying piano and decided I was into guitar instead. Kept doing the piano. That's
God, you're wild. You are wild. You were supposed to be playing piano, but you played electric guitar instead. God.
I am who
Did
I
you
am.
get caught? Who's your favorite talk show host? We know that.
Yeah, that's
What is the one thing you forget to do more
You know
than...
what else I did in high school? I decided this isn't that rebellious, but I had a sideburn phase, and I think as I look back on it, that might have been a kind of my idea of a rebellion.
How long were the sideburns?
Long enough.
Like mutton chop
Not quite
things?
mutton chop level.
No?
No.
Just long sideburns. What year was this?
Yeah, it's about 99, 2000.
Oh, that's too late to make an excuse for.
Yeah.
What's one thing you forget to do more often than anything else?
Ooh. I feel like Chasten probably knows the answer to this more than I do.
What does he forget to do?
I don't know.
Laundry, dishes.
Wow, they were right there, ready to go. That
Should I come down? I can come down.
All right. Please come back anytime.
I'd love to.
Anytime you're in town, and no matter who you vote for, please remember to vote. We'll be back. Our first guest is the former Georgia House Minority Leader and a voting rights advocate who ran a historic campaign for governor in 2018. Please welcome the amazing Stacey Abrams. Hi.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for taking the time. You must be very busy, and we're taping this a week before it airs, so who knows what's happened in that time. But what do you think about the charges in George Floyd's murder?
My deep hope is that these charges actually lead to justice. We have seen this happen before. The demonstrations demanding action, some action is taken, but when the demonstrations stop, the action abates. Basically, these officers get exonerated. And I think what's so critical at this time is that we see justice fully play out, that they are held accountable for their behavior in the same courts that we would have sent another bad actor to.
Yep, I've said this before, but I can't even imagine what would happen if they aren't convicted to the full degree that they deserve to be convicted. It would cause a whole new wave of trouble. So let's hope that happens. And not just George Floyd's death, but Ahmaud Arbery's murder happened in your state. And that happened under the claim of citizen's arrest, so that is a whole different issue. That's not police brutality. Let's talk about that for a minute.
Well, when people are calling for systemic justice, it's not simply ending the extrajudicial killings performed by law enforcement. It's also a judicial system that allows others, especially white people, to believe they have the authority and the color of law behind them so that they can take the life of others. But it was also the challenge of once these men murdered Ahmaud Arbery in the streets, the district attorney, the sheriff, the police, they all refused to take action. These men were released on their own recognizance. They were never charged. It took 74 days to get the justice system to actually start to respond to what happened to Ahmaud Arbery. And we can't forget what happened to Breonna Taylor in Louisville. Using the law of no-knock warrants, they broke into her house and they shot her in her sleep. This is a woman who did nothing but try to save lives. And she was murdered by the very people who were her colleagues in arms, who should have protected her. And so we have to expand our notion of what we talk about when we talk about justice. It's not simply stopping the police from killing Black people and brown people. It's also making certain that the justice system serves their interest and that justice is actually done.
Yeah. So voting is probably one of the most important things that everyone can do right now to help change this. systematic racism and everybody that's in power that is not doing anything to help, basically inciting it. Voter suppression, which affected you in the governor's race. I mean, we're trying to use the platform on our show to educate viewers who might not be aware of how that is contributing to the loss of Black lives. If you want to address that for a minute.
Thank you. It's three things. It's, can you register and stay on the rolls? Can you cast a ballot, and does your ballot get counted? And in that, that means if you live in a state like Georgia or Ohio, yes, you might be able to get on the rolls. Well, will they purge you because you didn't vote in a few elections? If you live in Wisconsin, are you required to have a voter ID? That means you have to show an original birth certificate, which a lot of folks born during segregation, for example, won't have because they were not allowed to be born in white hospitals. And it says your ballot count. We know across the country, including in Georgia and Florida and a number of other states, absentee ballots or provisional ballots are thrown out, or worse, they're never allowed to be cast at all. And so we have to look at the entire network of voter suppression. It's no longer one thing. It's any impediment that disallows an eligible voter to cast their ballot. And if it's under the color of law, if it's done by those responsible for our access, then it is voter suppression, and we need to wipe it out.
I think that's the one thing that everyone should start really looking at early on. If you're going to vote by absentee, by mail, if you're going to, and wherever you live, you need to do the research starting now almost to make sure you're eligible to vote. Because if you wait too late, then we don't hear that voice. Trump is already saying that voting by mail is shouldn't happen. It's fraudulent. Which is, again, I'll let you speak to that.
Well, he actually told the truth once when he said that the reason he doesn't like vote by mail is it's because he doesn't think he could get reelected if everyone actually voted. There is no voter fraud, and voter fraud is largely mythical. There are handfuls of examples, but even the most arduous defenders of the voter fraud idea, the Heritage Foundation, have only found 1,300 examples out of 625 million ballots that were cast between 2000 and 2020 in just federal elections. Let's just count federal elections. Voter fraud is not the problem. It doesn't happen. It doesn't change elections. It does not exist in any meaningful way. But what they're trying to block is voter participation, because they know that in a pandemic, the easiest way to protect everyone is to allow people to vote by mail, because we have some folks who don't have that choice. Those are the people who need to go to vote on election day. Everyone else should be allowed to vote early through vote by mail. And the reason they're worried is they know that this is a year where the elections truly matter and that people are energized. And if they can stop them from voting by mail, they think they can shut us up, and we need to prove them wrong.
We sure do. This is the most important election I think we've ever had in this country. This is a critical time. I just want to keep talking about how people can get prepared to vote, because that is the absolute necessity on all levels. We're going to take a break, and we'll be back more with Stacey after this. We're back with Stacey Abrams. You have a new book to help voters, so it is Our Time Is Now. You want to tell everybody about that? So that's going to help people with the voting process also.
Absolutely. Thank you. Our Time Is Now is a book I started writing early in 2019 in the wake of not only my election, but in the wake of the voter suppression that happened here and around the country. And so the first half of the book talks about the history of voter suppression, but how we fight back. But I also spend a lot of time talking about the instruments of justice, like the census. The US Census is something we tend to take for granted as an annoyance. It's just accounting. But really what it is, it's an analysis of power. When you participate in the census, you not only tell people where you are, you tell them what you need. And the undercount that happens in the census means that the very communities that need the help the most don't get the financial resources they're entitled to, but they also don't get the political power.
Yeah. How do you think Joe Biden has been handling everything in the past few months?
I have been exceptionally impressed by his willingness to listen, his willingness to go into spaces that may not always be comfortable, but more importantly, to be accountable, to say the things that are hard and harsh, the things that may cost him some votes, because he knows that what he's standing for is the principle of who we are as Americans, and his willingness to anger some in order to empower all is exactly what we need in a leader.
Yep. So true. It's exciting to think that your name is on the short list for vice president. Are you excited?
I have been very candid about the fact that if somebody liked me, I'd be happy to like them back. I think, unfortunately,
Right.
early on, I was, a few weeks ago, I started talking. I went on a few television shows, but people missed my point. I was trying to help families that weren't getting their stimulus checks. I live in a state where the governor was trying to kill us by reopening the state too quickly. And so they missed the first 2/3 of what I said and focused on the last piece. But that said, I think Vice President Biden knows who he needs as a partner, and he's going to follow the process of his experience, and he's going to decide who he needs. And I'm honored to even have my name included in the mix.
Do you know? I mean, I was hoping he would have announced by now. Do you know anything about when he's going to announce?
He has said that he intends to make a decision by August, and that's in keeping with the timing of the convention, which is pretty normal. But again, I think what we need to remember is that this is an incredibly important decision. He has a lot to consider. He has a really smart team, but this is a really smart man who's done the job. He's going to know what he needs, and we all look forward to finding out what he decides.
Yep, I bet you do. I bet you do look forward to it. Well, Stacey's book is called Our Time. It's Our Time is Now, and it's out now. You're marvelous, and thank you for taking the time to talk to me today. And I look forward to talking to you again as we get closer to the election.
Or maybe Madam Vice President.
Or maybe calling you Madam Vice President next time.
I just think of you as the bookstore owner who made me laugh for a number of years when I used to watch your show. I'm the daughter of a librarian from Gulfport, Mississippi, and I knew you were from Metairie, Louisiana. And when you started the Ellen Show, it was the most fun. So it's my pleasure to get to be here.
Oh, thanks. Well, my aunt was an English teacher. She lived in Pass Christian, Mississippi. So I used to go there all the time. Well, thank you again. And I'm honored that you used to watch my sitcom. Thank you so much. And I hope to see you soon.
Thank you. Take care.
Our first guest is a former Georgia State representative and a best-selling author who continues to fight every day for voting rights across the country. Please welcome the incredible Stacey Abrams. Hi.
Hello.
I'm so happy to see you. Thank you so much. I know how busy you are, so thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me.
Thank you for having me back.
Well, it's been quite a year, because last time I saw you, I was doing the show from my house. COVID, I think, had pretty much just started, and it was a tough time in our country. How are you feeling about things right now? Are you hopeful?
I am. I'm more determined than hopeful, because the last time we were talking about voter suppression, we still kind of have a voter suppression problem. But we've got proof that with hard work, determination, prayer, magic, that we can defeat it, or at least mitigate it.
Well, thanks to you, in great part, you've had an incredible year. Your voting rights work helped flip Georgia and the Senate. So thank you so much for all the hard work and inspiring so many people. I just have to remind people, if they don't know, I mean, this is just a little bit, because we don't have time, because I want to get to the book and everything else, but you registered 800,000 new voters in Georgia. You produced an award-winning documentary. You wrote 2 books, and you're nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. How many hours a night do you need to sleep? Are you one of these people that sleeps like 3 hours? How many hours a night do you sleep?
I'm a 5-hour-a-night person. I strive for 7. And let's be clear, people helped with all of the above. I did most of the writing of the books and stuff, but the rest was a joint effort.
Yeah, well, it's pretty impressive. And so 2021 is not an election year for most offices in the country, but what has you the most concerned right now?
The reaction to the success we saw in 2020 and 2021, not just Democrats winning, but the fact that new voters, voters of color, young people turned out in record numbers. Unfortunately, we're seeing laws across the country, especially starting in the South and Southwest, that are trying to reverse course and restrict access to the right to vote, to suppress the vote again. And our fight has to continue to be that every vote counts and that it does not matter who you vote for, you should have the right to vote if you're eligible.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because this is not the time to coast. This is not the time to think, okay, we're in a good place. Why is this so important for people to pay attention to?
You're going to hear this as a partisan issue, Republicans fighting Democrats, but that's not the case. This is about Republicans versus Americans. This is a citizenship question. If you respond to more people voting by making it harder to vote, if you look at their behavior and say, they use that too much, I'm going to take it away or make it more difficult, then you're engaging in voter suppression. But the problem is they may target communities of color or young people, but they break democracy for the rest of us. And when they do that, we are no better off than any other nation that struggles to hold on to our democracy. That's what shapes us, and we need to fight to keep it.
You're incredible. You're incredible. And here you are on the cover of June's InStyle magazine. You look beautiful, and it's fantastic. I mean, just you're amazing. And then I share something in common with you because I also am an introvert, but you were surprised to learn that you're an introvert.
I just thought I didn't like talking to people. I was in college, and they had a group of us stand up and describe our perfect weekend, and mine was me watching Star Trek by myself with no one around, and that was kind of the tip-off.
Yeah. Is that what someone said to you, or did you all of a sudden put that together, or did someone say you're an introvert?
Oh, no, I was an example. I just didn't know I was a guinea pig, so they had 3 of us stand up in front of the class, or a group of people, and they asked each one of us to describe our perfect weekend. I wasn't going to Rio. I wasn't going to a beach party. I was going to watch Star Trek, and she's like, extrovert, middle of the road, introvert.
Yeah. It's a good thing you found out. Now you know.
It was.
You know. So your parents,
name.
it's fine. I mean, it works if you're an introvert. If you don't have to, change that behavior if it still works. So your parents were civil rights activists. They started when they were teenagers. So I would imagine, what a great influence that is. What an impact as a kid to watch your parents. That had to influence you to who you are today.
They are extraordinary people. They are the best people I know. They have always believed that it's not about saying what you want to see. You have the responsibility to try to make it so. And more importantly, when you see someone in jeopardy, when you see someone vulnerable, your job is to help. That has to be the way we live. That's part of the social contract. They read the fine print, and they decided to go over the top and become United Methodist ministers, so they're going to help you here and into the afterlife. I'm just focusing on the here and now.
Well, you're focused on the here and now, and you're doing, as we were talking about, so much good for so many people. And I'm so honored that you told me that you would announce today that you are going to run for governor of Georgia in 2022. Is that right?
I'm sorry, there's a problem with the Zoom call. Sorry.
Oh, darn it. I thought that would do it.
I think you're glitching. Sorry.
Oh no, darn it! You should have froze or something. You should have just. All right, I won't get that answer, but I hope you do run for governor. We're going to take a break. We'll be back. More with Stacey. We're back with Stacey Abrams. Stacey has a new book out. It's called While Justice Sleeps. Congratulations. The reviews are fantastic. Tell everybody about. And it's a novel, so tell everybody what it's about.
So it's about a Supreme Court justice who is the swing vote on a very controversial case, and he falls into a coma. The person who has his power of attorney and the ability to decide whether he lives or dies is his lowly law clerk, Avery Keene, and she has a series of clues she has to unravel to not only save his life, but possibly save the country.
Fantastic idea. And you started working on this a decade ago, but then the publishers passed on it. Why would they pass on it then?
Well, it was agents who were telling me that they didn't think publishers would buy a book about a far-fetched president who was involved in international intrigue and scandal that was bombastic, and they thought that no one really cared about the Supreme Court because it wasn't really relevant to American lives.
I see. Wow. Very.
Yeah.
Have you talked to them since then? Have you? Oh my God. And then I was like, just asking during the break if this was your first novel, and they said you'd written a bunch of romance novels under a different name.
Yes, I've written 8 romance novels as Selena Montgomery. I wrote under a pen name because I was also publishing articles on the operational dissonance of the unrelated business income tax, and I thought no one wanted to read a romance novel by Alan Greenspan, so I kept the identity secret.
That's incredible. That's incredible. So the book is fiction, but there's a lot about politics, so I assume you pulled from real life experiences, right?
I did.
Yeah. And do these people know who they are in the book?
There are a few people. I like to use the names of friends, and I warn them that, you know, if you're in my book, you are at my disposal. And so I have a friend who's the current Speaker of the House here in Georgia. We do not agree politically. I hope I don't get him in trouble because he was in the book when I started writing it a decade ago, and I kept him in. And then I have another friend who's a little put out by her role in the book. It wasn't quite as meaty as she hoped, but I'm like, you're not dead. So that's a thing.
You didn't kill her off. Yeah, she could be. Because now she could be in the TV series, because now the book is they're making it into a TV series. Will you be in it at all?
Oh, dear God, no.
No. Just like a Hitchcock moment where you just see you in the background where you're, you know, he used to be in everything.
I can pull a, you know, Hitchcock / Stan Lee and just kind of appear, but it's going to be really fast and I'm out of there.
I think that would be great, though. Like, just to, we look for each episode where you find Stacey, like, just in the background or, you know, like as an extra. I think it would be a really fun thing for people to look for you.
I will give that, I'll give that note to the theater, to the
All right.
producers.
Thank you. Just tell them Ellen said. Hey, listen, it's always great talking to you. You are a fantastic human being. Thank you for all that you do. Stacey's book, While Justice Sleeps, is available everywhere books are sold. We'll be back. Thank you so much, Stacey.